This is an excerpt from Reliance, Illinois. I was 3 months from 13 when Mama and I stepped off the carriage in the Mississippi River town of Reliance. We carried between us one tattered carpet bag and a hat box of balding crushed velvet filled with lace-making and sewing notions. And we carried a marriage proposal from Mr. Lyman Dreyfus. 2 other passengers, a consumptive old farmer and a woman in a foreign-looking dress, heaved their trunks and disappeared into the arms and wagons of loved ones. The coachman hissed low obscenities to his team. Then he, too, continued up Grafton Road, leaving Mama and me alone together on the outskirts of a brick-and-mortar town that looked ready to crumble from the limestone bluffs above. A white haze veiled the sun. Farmland yawned westward, while the river, pressing south, seemed to me the source and end of all the changing colors quilting the Illinois shore. "Read it to me again," Mama said. Upriver, a cannon boomed from a trolling steamer, all but its twin stacks hidden by a thin, tree-lined island. "Madeline?" "Said wait by the river road. Don't see no other river, no other road." "Don't be smart." Mama coiled a strand of hair around one finger, sucked the split ends to a point. She gave her skirts and petticoats a shake as one would freshen long shelven linen. And then we both became conscious of the figure hulking in the shade of a nearby oak. He was wide through the eyes, his chin studded with soft blonde whiskers and angry red blemishes, and his long arms and legs had a dumb, restless look about them. I slipped behind Mama, pulled my bonnet low. "Miss Rebecca Branch?" he asked. Beautiful women like Mama only pretend to be unconscious of their effect their looks have upon men. On the train to Alton, her practiced scowl warded off uninvited attention, and the smile she gave this man, boy, a great big boy, slumping into the light, strained Mama's neck and shoulders. We had been expecting a man with a steady business and dependable income, so his age and the frayed legs of his trousers were suspect. The cannon boomed. The boy, recovering himself, nodded toward the steam trail. "A girl's gone missing." "That's terrible," she said. The boy shrugged. "If she drowned, the looking too far up current." He deliberated, craning his neck to see me. "Isn't there only meant to be one of you?" But Mama, stepping quickly forward, captured his full attention. "And you are Mr.?" The boy blushed. "It's Hanley. Just Hanley. Mr. Dreyfus's devil. Work for him. But I'm joining to fight out west as soon as I'm old enough." "Hanley, then," she said, and taking him by the sleeve, left me to mind the bags. "Take us to Mr. Dreyfus." Even with her humble trousseau, Mama maintained the entire journey a desperate, hopeful pride, which earned at once the slack-jawed admiration of men and the denigration of women, and made her even more a mystery to me than normal. In the days that must surely precede her wedding, she planned to stitch every scrap of lace she'd made about the collar and cuffs of her Sunday dress, in the hope that Mr. Dreyfus would find her attire frugal as opposed to poor. For in correspondence with Mr. Dreyfus, Mama, that is to say, I, because Mama never learned to read or write well, led him to believe she stood to inherit a respectable sum and a modest estate from an aged aunt, who, unfortunately for all involved, did not exist. Except for her hands, square and calloused as a man's, Mama could pass for 20. But there was no benevolent aunt, no money, no land, and of course, I did not exist in the mind of Mr. Dreyfus. No other advertisements in the matrimonial times featured mother with daughter, though plenty featured mutually attractive sisters, their hands full of daisies or knitting needles, sometimes a Bible. Mama decided, we both agreed, better to make explanations as they became necessary. At the time, I'd thought little about omitting myself from the page, and nothing of the fact that Lyman Dreyfus had included no photograph of himself when Mama had submitted 2, a profile and portrait at great expense. His ad read simply, 254, a man of advancing age, adequate height and weight, with a steady business and dependable income, seeks energetic wife, fit and healthy, with strong physiognomy. no Catholics. He was a man. He owned a house, a business. I liked the sound of his name, Lyman Dreyfus. Neither of us had known the meaning of the word physiognomy. Dot, the widow with whom we had been living, and very much a mother to us both, decided it must mean beauty, a strong beauty, especially since there had been no other mention of appearances. Her dying wish was that we stay this side of the Mississippi, as if the muddy gash that separated east from west would prove, even for her spirit, insurmountable, farther away than the spirit realm where Dot's husband, Sam, had waited with far more patience, she said, than he'd ever managed in life. Dot needn't have worried. Ads from men living in the ethereal West promised riches with a brand of reckless confidence that made Mama wary. It was his letters, so passionate and generous next to that ad, which convinced me that Mama should, by all means, fall in love with Mr. Lyman Dreyfus. I hope you too, he had written, might one day learn to care for the river, to love the current's heavy pull, its murky, unreflective face, hiding alike her deeps and shallows. And in another, after the first snow in Reliance, but few leaves stopped the eye short of the horizon, plucked cornfields revealed blackened old women's skin, flaking and fallow. Color drifts down river, and after the shallows have frozen, before ice locks the riverbanks, the eagles come. Such a curious contradiction, the ice-locked riverbank and the fierce, free flight of those eagles. He wrote about the sycamores in spring, the wind through the reeds, and I, who was then exceptionally sentimental, found it all terribly romantic. Albeit unlike any of Dot's yellow-covered literature, I nevertheless felt confident in my reply. My dear Mr. Dreyfus, I wrote, my soul is sobbing and lamenting at the thought of our great distant, and I have been praying our separation willn't destroy my tender heart. I tipped my nose for the scent of mud earth, as Mr. Dreyfus had described it, but smelled only the cannon's sulfur leavings. I listened in vain for the soft whisper of his river reeds, and could not differentiate sycamore from maple. I had expected the river to fit neatly into his descriptions, but his words had become no more than stacked stones, and the river, its changing colors, its breadth and constant motion, a living thing quite apart, it made me afraid to meet him. Main Street, refusing to remain loyal to the meandering contours of the Mississippi, cut straight up the hill. Red brick buildings, 2 and 3 stories tall, presented themselves in formal rows, and the streets they lined imposed a cage over the crumbling bluffs. I could see beyond the steep green the columned portico of a courthouse, shaded by a giant oak alive with blackbirds. From all directions up the hill, competing church bells chimed the noon hour. I felt glances, but kept my face covered, my eyes on Mama's boots until we turned down Union Street, an older part of the town, I guessed from the blackened brick and frayed trellises. Here the clatter of Main Street softened. A trio of old men, all knees and elbows, perched like vultures on a bench before the post office, staring openly. I might have ignored them, except that we stopped next door, before a narrow brick shop built, like the post office, into the side of the hill. No awning here, no flourish. Painted boldly across the shop window, the Reliance Register. Below, in smaller lettering, Dreyfus Print Shop and Jobbing Press. And there, in the lower left corner of the window, a curious thing. A broad sheet with the outline of a human head divided into a series of irregular quadrants, like a country map. Mama's breath grew shallow, but she did not waver, even when we heard a scuffing behind the door. A body stopped the gold pinprick of light through the peephole. The shop bell jangled. The door creaked open and to a tubby old woman. A film clouded her left eye, and her head bobbed, in greeting, I thought, until I realized she had no control over the action. In one long look, the old woman catalogued our worldly belongings. Her head still, she frowned, stuck her neck out, sniffed. Mama straightened herself. Here for Mr. Lyman Dreyfus, she said. I told them there was only meant to be one of them, said Hanley. But the woman had shuffled inside, mumbling and gesturing nonsense, I thought, until Hanley answered in the same language and hurried away through a passage under the elbow of an unlit staircase. On the left, the hallway opened to a shop counter, thick with dust, branded with the grimacing shadows of the stenciled window. With a gesture and grunt, the old woman bade us wait by a door on the right, and went in. We heard voices through the door, then nothing, and my stomach made a fist inside me. "I want to go, Mama. Hear me? Let's go." "Where are we going to go?" The voices inside matched the pitch of our own. "Don't care." But the old woman opened the door, and from the set of Mama's shoulders I knew I could do nothing but follow. "Mr. Dreyfus," Mama said, stepping into the room. She bent in an awkward curtsy, and though I would have preferred to stay hidden behind her indefinitely, I needed to see the man who had written so lovingly of a river. What I found was a nervous-looking fellow, tall and thin, with a mousy, mustached face, propping himself against the scuffed corner of a large writing desk. He wore a clerk's vest, ink spots stained the collars and cuffs of his blouse, but not one hair on his blond head defied that pale white part. "You!" He steadied himself. Nimble fingers fumbled for the pipe in his breast pocket, and gripping it, calmed. "You are Miss Rebecca Branch." His voice proved deeper than I imagined from looking at him, but neither this nor his thick Germanic vowels seemed to surprise Mama. They considered one another, his eyebrows remarkably active for a man whose face appeared otherwise void of expression. "I told them," said Hanley, through the door behind us. "I said there's only meant to be one of them." Mama's hand fished behind her, and when I did not take it, she stepped back, linked her arm with mine, and forced her urgency into the shape of a smile. "Say hello, Madeline." "Hello, Madeline," I said. "I think she must be dumb," said Hanley. "I'm not dumb." "Madeline, please." And judging this a time when explanations had become necessary, Mama plunged into our tale, how Auntie passed so very recently, how she couldn't leave me, her sister, behind alone. "If there was anyone else," she said, "anyone else in the world, I would have left her." All this we'd practiced, of course, but practice never made such a hole inside me. Maybe what struck me so hard was the way nerves thickened the Kentucky in Mama's voice. But in the pregnant silence that followed, the lilting cadence buzzed like flies between my ears and fell dead at my feet. "You spoke nothing of a sister," said Mr. Dreyfus. "Mr. Dreyfus, But Mr. Dreyfus, aided by that copper-headed cane, turned his back. Doing so seemed to give him confidence. He limped toward the bookcase and set his hand atop a hollow-eyed ceramic bust, the skull of which, like the flyer in the shop window, was divided by lines into quadrants. "Some say, Miss Branch, that the eyes are the windows of a man's soul. Aristotle believed it was the nose. A beak or a snout, he thought, might indicate the insensitivity of a pig, the irascibility of a dog, or the impudence of a crow. We are mirrors of our animal characteristics. Animals, except for our ability to reason," he turned, "and to lie. Mr. Dreyfus, she won't be a problem. She will have to eat, will she not?" Neither his color nor his voice rose, but Mama and I both jumped. "I would be supporting her, would I not? At least," he said, and I did not like the way his voice pitched to a question, "at least until you come into your inheritance, Miss Branch." He looked significantly at Mama. Aristotle also thought the brain's function was to cool the blood, but science advances, our understanding grows. He paused. "I do not mean to frighten you, Miss Branch. What I mean to say—" At this he took from his pocket one of the photographs we'd sent, Mama in profile, hair curled, dressed in taffeta, a lace collar, holding Dot's Bible to her chest. The corners of the photograph had been rubbed smooth, and he stared as if the image were infinitely more substantial than the woman, flesh and blood, before him. "What I mean to say is that I might have predicted something like this would occur. Something like what? Like me? What I mean to say is that your organs of ideality, industry, and secretiveness are remarkably developed. He circled with his pipe distinct regions of the ceramic bust and the corresponding regions on Mamma's photograph, then looked up at her as if this had settled something between them. But great strength often reciprocates in some great weakness. The phenomenon is the same in domesticated animals. Mamma bristled. Animals? Domesticated animals, Dreyfus corrected, warming to his subject. Human beings are domesticated animals, Miss Branch, no less than cattle or dogs. Consider the German shepherd, the Pekingese, bred for the lap and nothing more, but excellent for their purpose. Purpose, Mr. Dreyfus? From the angle of her chin, more than the tone of her voice, I could tell that fear and indignation were turning to anger. Mr. Dreyfus noticed nothing. In fact, he showed little trace of his previous nervousness. For the first time, he allowed his eyes to sweep Mamma's person. The old woman said something. "Turn," said Mr. Dreyfus. Mamma turned once round, arms held at a doll-like funny angle. She stared nowhere in front of her. The three of them, Mr. Dreyfus, Hanley, the old woman, watched, swallowing Mamma whole, her small frame, her full chest, her dark curls framing tragic brown eyes. She seemed to me like someone else, a character in a book. The beautiful heroine who must be saved. I felt like stepping in front of her and shouting at them, "Stop looking at her like that!" But I didn't move. I didn't say anything. It was the old woman who spoke again. "Now your hands," Mr. Dreyfus said. "We will see your hands." Mamma stiffened. Was I not clear? He looked from Hanley to the old woman. Mamma offered her calloused man hands for inspection, and my insides cracked and bled for her. The old woman bared a yellow smile. "What purpose, Mr. Dreyfus?" Mamma asked tightly, holding her hands to her chest. "Mr. Dreyfus, you said something about—" "What purpose, Mr. Dreyfus?" "I know, Miss Branch, that I am not a young man, nor do I possess requisite attributes, which might impress a lady of any standing or stature. You," he eyed our paltry belongings, "you are not a rich woman, nor are you likely to be. Am I right? Am I? And from your letters, neither are you well educated." Mamma's hand dug into my arm for silence. Oh, my letters, my beautiful letters! "So, you will forgive me for observing that your prospects in civil society, lovely as you may be, are limited." Inclining his head at the last word, he took a step back to examine her again, this time with a revolved clinical interest, and began to pace crook-step with his cane, the double row of ink-drawn portraits on the wall, as much his audience as we. "I venture to guess factory work would prove fatal. You might meet some young farmer whose bleak acreage you would labor the harsh seasons, yourself becoming as used as the land. Or perhaps you might find your way to San Francisco, where your beauty might win the arm of some rich magnate. But—" He stopped. He turned. He pointed his cane at her. "The uncertainty, Miss Branch, the desperation and uncertainty remains, does it not?" He tapped his cane twice like a gavel, and even the old woman jumped. "You need a husband you may rely upon for shelter and sustenance. I, a wife to see Mutter and me comfortably through our later years." The old woman, brightening, placed a possessive claw on Mamma's shoulder. "And, of course, a man of certain age desires, well," he said, looking down at the bare, scuffed floor, "companionship." I almost scoffed at this. Companionship was not, in my experience, what men desired of Mamma. But now he turned those pinprick eyes upon me, which leaves only one question. Your sister. I held tight the hem of Mamma's skirt. Of all our lies, he chose to believe this one. Mr. Dreyfus peered closer. "What are we to do with you?" "I won't do without her. I made a mistake. We'll go together." This is what Mama should have said. With so many of our lies in pieces on the ground, she should have told him this one truth. She can work. She's a very good worker. I let go of her skirt. It was another lie. I was easily bored with tedious tasks. She said herself I was ungrateful and undisciplined, with no desire to be otherwise. I would like to see her face, he said. No, I said. The boy and the shaking old lady barred the door. Young lady, said Mr. Dreyfus, you are in no position to disobey. Mama turned me round. Please, she mouthed. Even as I shook my head, she was peeling the bonnet brim from my face. I let her. I stood there exposed before them until I unbuttoned my skin and rose up and out of myself to where I might not feel but only see, taken in parts unrelated to one another. I am not unattractive. Both of my eyes are well-shaped, though they do not share the same shape, my left being slightly fuller and higher than the right. My left earlobe hangs long. I possess a distinguished overbite, a version of which I've seen in Harper's sketches of the Irish, and I chew my lower lip when nervous, like now. But none of these features, which to some extent have softened with time, compelled me to hide behind that atrocious oversized bonnet. I owe this particular modesty to the port wine-stained birthmark coloring my left side, from forehead to thigh. It is, a lovely shade of red, I think. Lovely for a wine, a rose, a fine Indian silk. I see, he said, why you might not mention her. I pulled my bonnet back down, thought nothing, felt nothing. She'll be no problem to you. She's a good worker. It would be, Mama said, gathering herself, charitable. That word hurt Mama. She considered begging worse than stealing, wouldn't beg to save her life or mine, and had a deacon's scorn for anyone who did. Mr. Dreyfus dismissed the word entirely. No one gives without expecting something in return. He snatched his hat from the tree. But we will discuss this later. Find a more suitable accommodation. Are you ready? Ready, sir? To be married. Now? I see no reason to wait. No lace, no church, no preacher. Mama was married in her traveling dress, in the courthouse above the town green, by a paunchy little magistrate, more intent on his lunch than the proceedings. That night, as Mama and I lay together on a cot in the cramped, sloping attic where I was banished until more suitable accommodations could be found, I had already given up on Mr. Dreyfus and on Reliance, and could hardly believe Mama did not feel the same. He can't be what you imagined, I said, fitting myself into her hollows. Her breath came quick, and her nerves buzzed straight through me. Didn't let myself imagine. I didn't believe her. I had done nothing for the last 6 weeks but dream about the man who had written those letters, and neither his pinched little mousy face nor his nervous limping footsteps below matched the man I had constructed. Not rich or romantic, not even all that handsome. In the attic, where a few pieces of furniture draped in winding sheets, a pair of traveling trunks, stacks of newspapers nearly as tall as the ceiling, a vanity mirror with a long river-shaped crack down the center. Mama's expression, visible in the two halves, revealed nothing. We could go, I said. Mama, it's not that simple. You think he'd be able to stop us? Not what I meant. What do you mean? Wind rattled the dormer window. She combed her fingers through my hair. You need a nightcap. Did you see today? The ladies in their dresses? We could stow away on a steamer. Stop. Stop now. Listen to me. She turned me round and cold filled the space between us. Words packed her dark eyes, but she said nothing. What, Mama? Mind Mr. Dreyfus and his mother. Mama, there's nowhere else to go. Here, Mr. Dreyfus he's right. Nothing's worth desperation. You got no idea. Be grateful you got no idea. No. Now look at me. Things are different now. How different? Back in Kentucky, before Mr. Dreyfus's reply, before Dot died, the husband featured only nominally into our plans. If he, whoever he might be, did not suit us, well, we'd thieve him and run. Looking around, I didn't see much worth thieving. I meant to start over here, Mama said. I meant to be a lady. The word lady like a shoe she was trying to fit. We've got to make ourselves necessary, hear me? Make yourself necessary, indispensable. She heaved the attic door iron ring, and catching her divided reflection in the cracked glass, put one hand on her stomach, forced her shoulders level, smoothed her hair and dress. I got to go to him. Mama, call me Rebecca, Madeline, you've got to remember. I watched, frustrated, sick with an apprehension I couldn't name, as she climbed down the ladder away from me.
Thanks very much, Mallory, and thank you, Mary Vollmer, for writing a fabulous book. And thank all of you for coming to Stories on Stage tonight. Next month, the final Friday in July, we'll be back here at the Sacramento Poetry Center with two authors, one of whom is a former emerging writer at Stories on Stage, Maureen O'Leary, whose debut adult novel, Ghost Daughter, is coming out in July and will be read here. Our other emerging writer is Krista Menard, who's also here tonight, who some of you might know as the editor of Sacramento Magazine, but in fact a very fine fiction writer. So we are very happy to have her as our emerging writer for July, and I hope to see you here next month. If you aren't receiving our email newsletter, please there's a sign up there. Please sign up. And also you can friend us on Facebook and, of course, do the friending and the subscribing and all that stuff. So anyway, thank you for coming. We enjoyed having you here. Please finish up your refreshments. And you already finished the wine, so there's none of that. And there is water, so help yourself. We'll see you next month.